I ended up having being involved in really complex cases. I came at it as a prosecutor and ended up having to handle some of the biggest cases in the country almost immediately against the asbestos manufacturers and pharmaceutical manufacturers. And in there, what happens is you develop a specialty, and this specialty is trial law. Most people believe that everybody's a trial lawyer, and they're not. The truth is, it's less than, I think it's less than one third of 1% of lawyers in this country are actually trial lawyers with trial skills that handle the kind of complex cases that I'm talking about. And so I ended up there, and it's interesting. By being there, it gave me kind of an interesting view of the world that maybe most people don't see, because I'm always on the other side of a table against a corporation that's created a pharmaceutical that's killing people, or a corporation that's polluting our waterways or our air knowingly. Or a Wall Street entity that's stealing from mom and pop. So I always see that part of the story, and I collect the documents, and I take the depositions, and I try the cases. And in there, most of these books that I write kind of write themselves, because they're all based on actual events, actual cases that I handle. So what happened with Law and Vengeance was we had a case that came in that we actually handled for a couple of years, where we had a weapons manufacturer that had created a defective gun sight. And unfortunately, the defect in the gun sight was so bad that at 100 yards it may be off as much as 3 or 4 degrees, which obviously makes the gun fairly useless. But they sold a ton of them to the military and to police organizations all over the country. And it was an interesting twist, because I saw the Department of Justice, that you would expect to actually really be involved with maybe even locking up the people who had committed this fraud. Rather than doing that, it was more of a slap on the wrist. It was, you go your way, we'll go ours. And that's typical of most of the cases that I handle, where you expect the Department of Justice to do their job. You expect these people, when they see that somebody is engaged in something that is certainly at the edge of criminal activity, that we ought to expect the government to do their job, and that is you have to interrupt that type of culture. You can't fine them, and you can't say, gee whiz, I'm going to slap you on the hand, don't do it again. But unfortunately, with this business that I am, I see the other side of that. I see pharmaceutical companies that produce products that kill and cripple people, and we see at the very top of the food chain that the people who made those decisions knew absolutely what was going on. But nevertheless, you fine that company a couple of $100 million, slap them on the wrist, tell them don't do it again, when in fact, if somebody on the street were to cause somebody that type of injury, or to cost them their life because of some conduct, they'd be thrown in jail. So this book came out of kind of the anger about that. This came out of people should know that they believe that there is a good side and a bad side where it comes to the way that corporate America operates, and that somewhere in there we have regulators and we have government entities that are making sure they play by the rules, but most of the time they aren't playing by the rules, and we don't have the Department of Justice forcing them to play by the rules.